right. Well, hello and good morning, everyone. It's a small group today, and this is going to be an interactive session. So please feel free to unmute yourself and show yourself on video if you like. Anyway, welcome. Today's special guest is Patty Mohler out of Jacksonville Beach, Florida. She is a counselor and a licensed mental health counselor, I should say, to be more formal. And she's going to be talking with us about our minds and our feelings and how all that plays into our well-being. She believes every individual should have a voice and be heard. She will devote her practice to help. She does devote her practice to helping individuals bolster their self-esteem, find their passion, and be inspired to create the life that they want, especially passionate about helping young people. Her nature is very positive, and she has a gift for helping people discover the path to what they would like as a better life. She's a graduate from Colorado State University with a bachelor's degree in English and a minor in physical education. She has owned a studio in Jacksonville, Florida for 20 years. She is a licensed mental health counselor, obtained her master's in clinical mental health counseling from the University of North Florida. She is CACREP accredited, and she did her practicum and internship at Hubbard House and its partner agencies. She's a SMART recovery facilitator and specializes in trauma, grief, and loss. Unfortunately, what a lot of us have experienced too much of these days. As I said, interactive. She is here to engage with all of us today, and we look so forward to having Patty speak. This is Will Work for Food, the New Possibilities Hour. I think I neglected to mention that at the very beginning. It's wonderful to have you all here. As you know, we do this every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And whatever time it is in your world, every Thursday, join us. There is no charge for these programs. They are all we ask is that you donate either of your time or your wealth, your money to a food bank to help support a food bank. And people around the world are eating because of the generosity of this group. In fact, as of today, the donations to food banks, of which we have been told, and you know we are not told of all of them, $289,251.66. So that's more than 3 million meals that have been served to the hungry around the world. Fantastic. And thank you so much, all of you, for your generosity. The food bank for Patty that she is supporting today and will tell us about is Mission House in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And so with that, Patty, why don't we turn it over and the floor is yours. You can tell us a bit about Mission House, and the link will be put into the chat. And then otherwise, then we can get started and get to it.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here. If you want to undo your cameras, I am very much more interactive when you guys are here. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But please, at any time, put your question in the chat, raise a hand, come on board. I love it when it's interactive. It's far easier than just listening to somebody monotonely have a conversation. So I did choose Mission House out of Jacksonville Beach. Mission House has been around for years and years and years. And it's a conglomeration of about 5 different actually churches in our group. There's a Catholic, there's a Baptist church, there's an Episcopalian church. There are 5 of them have come together to try to help and support the people in Jacksonville Beach. It is the only day center that we have in Jacksonville Beach, and there is a large population of homeless people. So it is a place where people can come and get showers and get a fresh set of clothes and have some food. They can do their shopping. They've expanded greatly, especially during COVID. We know how many families are still really hurting. So that is the reason that I've supported them. I've supported them for years, and I'm really excited to be part of this event and welcome you to support Mission House as well. So very happy to get started. I'm going to share my screen. We all know how's this go, so let's try. There we go. Can everybody see it just fine? I'm getting a little head nod from Jean, so that's a great thing. So I called this Rekindling the Flame because when we experience burnout, one of the things that it is it feels like our flame has truly gone out. So this conversation is about burnout. And I love this quote. I'm going to slide you guys over here. A healthy relationship will never require you to sacrifice your friends, your family, your dreams, or your dignity. And I love that because I think so many times we think of a relationship as just being maybe our family or our friends, but you also have a relationship with those that you work with. And so I think anytime that you're starting to feel that you're sacrificing, you haven't seen your friends, you're not paying attention to your family, your dreams are being squelched, or you're not being able to live those out, I think that's a really important thing to look at because your job is a relationship as well. It's not just an individual relationship. You have a relationship with your community. Most of you are attorneys, judges, all of those people. You have people in your offices, you have your clients. So that's all really large. It's always one of my favorite that Mandy Hale put out. So what is burnout exactly? Burnout's a reaction to prolonged chronic job stress and is characterized by three main dimensions: exhaustion, cynicism, less identification with the job, and feelings of reduced professional ability. I think one of the things that I think is really important to realize is the term burnout is relatively new. It was discovered in 1974 by a man named Herbert Freudenberger, and he wrote the book Burnout, The High Cost of Achievement. And it's one of the great books, and he is the man that actually coined the term and started to describe what burnout is. There's a couple areas that I'll dive out into, whether it's depression or whether we're really talking about compassion fatigue, which I have a new name for that. So we'll talk about that. Simply put, it's feeling exhausted. It's feeling wiped out. It is feeling like your job and that you feel less than in all areas of your life. And I think that's so important that we keep that in mind. I'm going to make sure I have my timer on so that have plenty of time. Sorry about that. But I want to make sure that it's simply when we're feeling exhausted. I don't know, is there anybody in here willing to raise their hand whether or not that they've ever experienced burnout? I got one raised hand. Awesome. I'm going to raise my hand like 2 or 3 times. It's happened throughout COVID, right? It's happened before that. It's that sheer exhaustion of not being able to focus at work. One of my experiences with burnout was when this is the word I'd love you to kind of look at, is the cynicism. And we go to absolutes. Nothing is good. Everything is terrible. My life is horrible. Nobody loves me. It goes to those big, big absolutes. And as soon as you find yourself using the always, the nevers, the everybody's, then you've got to start looking at it, whether you're experiencing burnout or not. The signs of burnout. I think it's really important. There's so many similarities, but I really think it takes a trained professional to truly help you understand the difference between burnout and depression. They're very similar. They overlap one another, but there are some differences. Signs of burnout are poor performance, cynicism at work. This is terrible. Nobody loves me. I can never get a project done. I'm not good enough. I'm terrible at my job. Reduced creativity. If we're not thinking outside of the box like we normally do, all of you are presented with problems every single day with your clients. They come to you, they have an issue. And when you're on top of your game, you can think outside of the box. But when all of a sudden it's like every client in every case is the exact same thing, it's Groundhog Day, right? I'm going to use a story of my own. I'm not exactly proud of my story, to be 100% honest, but I think it gets the point across of what burnout can look like and what it can feel like. I am a trained trauma therapist, so I see people, I help the FBI with human trafficking. So I deal in a world that has an awful lot of trauma in it. So one of these days I was working, this is a couple of years ago, I was working with a client who unfortunately had been shot while she was working at her job. And we had been dealing with this trauma for probably over a year, which is fine. PTSD is not anything that you get over or through quickly. So about a year in, and I was exhausted, I was tired, I adored this client, but I saw her on my books and I was like, are you for real? That's who's coming in today? And I didn't kind of notice it then, but then we sat down and started to talk. And she started to tell me again about what she's supposed to do, right? Tell me about her experience when she got shot. The ticker tape in my head was, dear God, do I have to listen to you about being shot one more time? I was floored. I've never felt worse as a therapist. I was like, where's my compassion? What am I doing? How am I going to help this person if that's how I feel in this moment? It was a horrible experience for me because I'd been so in tune for over a year with this particular client. I was pretty upset about it. That night, a colleague called and she knew I'd been kind of struggling in the last week or two. And she called and said, hey, can you collaborate on a case for me? I'm like, not a problem. She spoke for 15 minutes, gave me the outline of the case, what I would need to know, how I could make some observations. And at the end of her phone call, I said, Lynn, I am so sorry. You have now talked for 15 minutes. I have not heard one word you've said. And she stopped and she said, Patty, you're in trouble. And then I went to tell her what had happened with my client. And I said, 2 more days, and I am on vacation. That to me was startling, that I had absolutely disdain for a client, that I couldn't listen to a colleague. I'm lucky enough that I had seen it build up and that I was preparing to go on a vacation to change my vibe. But I think those are incidences that a lot of people don't pay attention. You power through them. You just think, oh, it was just a bad day. I got to get through it. And then there's another bad day. And then there's another bad day. Everybody, those of you that are on here today, I want to tell you that burnout is probably one of the most difficult things I have ever witnessed people try to get out of. And we don't do it easily. And I've rarely seen people do it without therapy. And that's not because I'm a therapist and I want to point you towards a therapist, but it's that serious. We can change the way our heart rates are. We can elevate our cholesterol. We can have strokes. We cannot be sleeping. It's a serious physical and mental state that takes a lot of work. The interesting thing, let me see if I go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the causes about burnout. I want you to pay attention that COVID is also, for the entire world, created PTS for everybody in the world. I just do not care who you are. We suffered from it. PTSD came out of the Vietnam War when veterans came back and had tough time dealing with noises and experiences and trauma. And so we kind of labeled that. Many of us in the trauma world have redefined PTS as whether you have solid ground and you're working on solid ground, going to jobs, dealing with families, and then it feels like the bottom has just pulled out from underneath you. So if we use that, we can go with solid ground. You're feeling great. Spouse walks in the door and says, you know, I know we've been married 35 years, but I want a divorce. That's PTS. Here we are in COVID. Everybody go home. It's likely that you're going to lose family members or possibly yourself to this pandemic. The bottom has fallen out. So I think there are very few people that got to get away from PTS in the last several years. And it's been exacerbated in the pandemic. If you never took care of past traumas, if you didn't know you had past traumas, they became activated. People were coming into my office and saying, oh my God, Patty, I'm so angry at everybody and everything. Sure enough, it was more than likely the PTS, the burnout from being home, from being in these traumatic situations. So I think it's just really important that we take a look at that. Look at the workload. All of you probably went just on extra attention. You think of the people, what I'm talking about, the doctors, the attorneys, nurses, oh my God, a teacher, for heaven's sakes, mental health therapist. I went from working my 7 or 8 hours and clients a day to the first 2 weeks until I realized what was going to happen to me. I had to put on the brakes. I went from seeing that many clients to those first 2 weeks of the pandemic when it really reared its head. I went to seeing 14 to 16 clients a day. Just people phoning, and man, you just feel terrible that people need you. So you just kept plowing through it and plowing through it. Then a couple of us got together and said, we're not going to survive. If this is 2 weeks, we will not survive. And how to put some parameters or boundaries around that. I don't know, do any of you, did you see your workloads increase during the pandemic? I see a couple heads nodding, right? And you feel terrible about not being able to assist people, so you work twice as hard. The perceived lack of control. And that is one of the ones that I think is really important, that you think you've lost all control in your world. I don't have time. I can't get through the day. I have too much going on. I can't get this done. I can't get the briefs out. I can't talk to that judge. There are not enough attorneys. There are not enough teachers. So it's the perceived lack of control. And when people talk to me, I stop them and get them to understand what you can control. What can you control? You can control what you put in your mouth. That's control, but you've got to start to realize that. You can control when you go to bed. You can control when you go for a walk and for how long your walk is. So again, it's that absolutes. I have no control over my life. I have no ability to do anything correctly. Make it smaller. Let people realize that they are in control of many, many choices throughout their day, and they will feel more empowered. They won't feel like that black burnt out match in the middle. Reward. A lot of people don't feel like they are getting rewarded at work. Somebody's not recognizing them. Somebody's not saying thank you for doing the long days. That's really important for people. I don't think it has to be this big bouquet of flowers or recognition here on the internet. It simply has to maybe be a simple text or an email from somebody that you work with, and just say, hey, great job today. I saw how you were talking to Susie and it was really nice to overhear. That makes a difference in everybody's day. If somebody's starting to experience burnout and gets a simple note, hey, love the way you did that today, that can switch somebody's world around. I could not talk enough or long enough or enough about reaching out to people during COVID. It was one of the hardest things that we didn't do, is we got really to the point that we thought we should isolate. But interestingly enough, that isolation meant that we stopped talking and communicating other than with our thumbs. You guys, thumbs is not communicating. Words are communicating. Thumbs are just symbols, either in an email or on a text. And so we lose intonation, we lose eye contact, we lose ability to read different tones. And you can't do that with thumbs. So I always tell people, call somebody, call a girlfriend, a guy friend, your mother, your kid, just to say hello. Hear a voice. If we don't hear a voice, we're very disconnected. The sense of community. I think most people did experience burnout because there was a loss of community. I happen to be in an office where there's all attorneys, interestingly enough. I am the only therapist there, which is kind of fun for me because I get to have a lot of different conversations, but it's all attorneys. They have yet to come back. They went home at the beginning of COVID, that April, when, at least here in Florida, they said, hey, everybody's going to die, go home, right? And we all left. And then I realized that doesn't work for therapy. People want one-on-one. So I went back to the office. I can honestly say I've never left my office. Again, I deal with addiction is primarily one. And my second big caseload is domestic violence. And what are the two things that went crazy during COVID? Addiction and domestic violence. So I stayed in the office. It's been over 2 years. I have yet to see 3 of the attorneys come back. They figured it out. They pivoted. They're staying at home. It's working for them, which is awesome. But it's also, when I talk to them occasionally, it's a loss of community. They're not seeing each other. They're not getting dressed every day. They're not putting on makeup. They're not feeling great about themselves. And that creates burnout too. When I helped families that were at home in a 1-bedroom apartment, maybe a 2-bedroom apartment, and we've got 2 adults now working at home, and we have 2 children that were sent home, much of my work was helping families deal with that burnout of, oh my gosh, this is a family I love and I can't stand any of you. Right? How do you deal with that? We would work out systems, 45 minutes to an hour for every person to actually be in the bedroom by themselves. Nobody could come in. You know, we created space for people. So that loss of community is a large one. Fairness. And fairness can be that you just don't feel like you're being treated right at work. Maybe you feel like you didn't get the promotion you needed. Maybe you feel like you're just not being treated well. One of the big things that I find when I deal and coach with businesses is that some employees feel like they are being, don't have a positive regard with a coworker. And maybe a coworker is being a bully. That can create burnout where you don't want to go to work. So it's part of that fairness. That the values mismatch. If you're working for a company and the values are totally opposite of what you do, I have a client that's a great one. The community or the value of that is a real party corporation. They do a lot of partying. They do a lot of alcohol. They have parties every Thursday and Friday night for special events. And this person is very triggered by that. And so the values don't match, and that person's very burnt out. They don't even like their job anymore. They don't want to go. They feel like they're being put in a very bad position for having to be there. So that's somebody I would work with to try to see if your values aren't matching, maybe it's time to look for a different job. It's not always that you have to change a job. And sometimes it is. 2 weeks ago, I had a great client come in, total burnout. We've gone through all of the things. The person liked their job. I asked them what part of their job they didn't like. They described it to me. We talked about it for several weeks. They finally went to their manager and said, I just want to stay, but in this particular piece of this puzzle that we're working on, is just not where I need to be. They asked to be placed on another part of this large project that they were working on. And the HR director and the manager were like happy to move this person over. I have to tell you, this person is flourishing. They love their job. They don't feel the same kind of stress. They're still contributing. I give all the props to that manager and to that HR person that just like didn't buck up, get it done. They were willing to work with that person. I had not a little burnout story, but it's interesting. Somebody came in last week. I was doing some coaching on a business, and this And the boss came in and was just like, I don't know what to do with one of my clients. They're in a very bad domestic violence situation. They explained it to me. Boy, being able to explain to that boss, and I loved her attitude. She said, what do I need to know to help my employee? Oh, can we clone her? Clone her. She just wanted to know, how do I help? I gave her a list, how to safety plan, some different things, where she might feel better sitting. She was out in the public. This employee was out in the front. Well, if you're in a domestic violence situation and you think your abuser's coming through the door, you're on hypervigilance. You cannot think, you cannot be comfortable in your skin. By simply moving that person to the very back in an outer office that was secure, and if she felt like she could lock the door, that person's total outlook on her job changed because she felt safe and secure. But it was the boss who was very aware of what was happening. So I think we need to be, I applaud people that think outside of that box. And that is one of the causes is a lack of communication and understanding from your HR or your boss. So that's why I gave that story. What's the difference? And I think that's my next screen. Does anybody have anything? I see there's something in the chat. I didn't know if that was just a handout. I'm going to come back real quick. Does anybody have any comments or questions for me real quick?
Fascinating. And the chat is the link to the mission house.
Okay, there you go.
Patty, I had something I'd like to put out.
Please.
Thank you for everything you're sharing with us. I just wanted to go back for a moment to your personal story on burnout, which I wanted to honor by acknowledging it. And I identified with it very much. And the one thing I would add is, you described, you noticed what was happening. You caught yourself, particularly in that conversation with a colleague. You had vacation 2 days out. But there's an additional element that I try to practice and share with my colleagues, which is not to simply avoid demonizing myself for the, this disdain you felt for your client. Suddenly you couldn't listen to her again, but to actually give yourself permission that that episode in itself is a manifestation of what you described, a PTS kind of thing. It's just phenomena. It's not bad. I didn't do anything wrong.
Correct.
So that becomes a critical part of the self-wellness orientation. So I just wanted to add that.
Roger, I so appreciate you saying that. And that's my last slide. I think we're moving into that, but I love the fact that you brought that up. It's about self-compassion. It's about where is our self-compassion and learning how to be like, the hard part about burnout is often I see people, they're in it. They're not catching it on the front end, to try to do some of the preventative. So we get caught in it. And then when you're caught in it, it's like being in this just vortex and you can't see out of it. And it is to be compassionate with yourself and learn how to be self-compassionate. One of the toughest things I think for any human to do is we struggle with that one a lot, but you're so right. That's so important to be able to say, I'm not a bad person. And that'll take me real quickly into what is shame and what is guilt, because I'm a bad person that I thought that would lead me to shame. And so let me do a quick, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to run over here and just do a quick little thing on shame and guilt. Guilt is a behavior. Guilt is, oh, I threw a baseball and it went into Mrs. Smith's window. I feel terrible. Going to go apologize. Going to ask my dad to pay the money for the bill and I'll work it out with my dad. That's guilt. I just feel terrible. It was an accident. Shame is, I am bad. I am a bad person. I'm a bad therapist. I'm a bad baseball thrower. I'm a bad lover. I'm not small enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not a good enough attorney. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not dark haired enough. I'm just not enough. And so the same baseball player throws that baseball, it goes into Mrs. Smith. It's not like, oh, ouch, that's terrible. It's like, I never do anything right. I am a terrible person. I can never get this right. So shame and guilt are two different things. And burnout, I think, definitely plays into that. If we're not doing what Roger suggested so beautifully, is having that self-compassion and being okay with experiencing burnout. It's also a normal thing. We hope to not get people there, but it's not to be self-critical at that time of, oh, you're not strong enough to be able to handle it. Yes, it is. Life just got overwhelming for a myriad of reasons. Would you agree, Roger?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the difference, one of the things I want to talk about real quick is the difference. What's the difference between depression and burnout? And their differences, depression can come on at any time, and it might be you don't have a reason. You just kind of look around and go, oh my God, life is pretty good right now. What's going on? There are a lot of different reasons, and they very much overlap. But with burnout, one of the big indicators is if you can stop doing what you're doing, experiencing something, and you feel better, it was more than likely burnout. When I got on my vacation, and here's how that vacation went. When I got on my vacation, I happened to be taking myself to Mexico by myself. And when I arrived, if this were my, I walked in, I signed in, and I went like this to the person at the front desk. It was my iPad and my telephone. And I said, unless the world is blowing up, you can't give these back to me. Put them in your safe. And he was like, oh, okay. I had 4 books, real actual books I was going to read. Didn't read one. I took a yoga class in the morning. I did some pampering every day. I became the kind of laughing stock at the resort. Like, Patty, what are you doing today? Oh, it's mud bathing my head until it looks like a peacock kind of a day. I did a different self-healing thing every single day. First night I slept 8 hours, then it went 9 hours, 11 hours, and 11 hours. And I was just done. And I just, every day I kept waking up. I'm like, I was just at my end. And I came back and I was fine. I didn't hate my job. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't sad. I didn't think I was a terrible person. I was just exhausted. And so just taking me out of my element was enough for me. And having that downtime, I have since learned that as a therapist, I need at least 4 days of no tech, no people, no nothing every few months, or I go to burnout. And so I do that. I'll go to the mountains where there is no technology. I have a little cabin that I've met this wonderful family. It's on 35 acres. I take my dog, and it's just the 2 of us and an occasional black bear that'll wander through. That was an interesting story. But I go away and it's 0 downtime. I just can't talk to people anymore. That's what recharges me, recharging, being back out in the elements. So depression and burnout are very similar. They do have an overlap, but again, with burnout, if you can switch something, like my one client who switched from job to job, wasn't that she was depressed or sad. She needed a switch in her job title, and her performance just flourished. I need to be away from people after dealing with them 8 or 10 hours every single day and taking on their trauma. I need to de-traumatize. Any thoughts, questions? Love them.
Well, I just really appreciate you making the connection with depression and burnout, because this is something I know very intimately. And just, for the purpose of sharing to possibly enlighten. I interestingly, Patty, I was living in my home in the San Marco district 15 years ago when we were headed towards the big crash of 2007, 2008. Yeah. I just turned 50. I had a successful career that unfortunately involved working for a series of very abusive, sociopathic, real estate billionaire kind of people. And you know, the last one, they would recruit you to make them more millions and then toss you overboard as soon as you made the wrong move. But it just, the way things came together for the first time in my career, I was not able to get back on my feet. Nothing started working. And I also have, but then I'd had about 10 years in the recovery community. So I had a lot of tools and I had some knowledge, but still it was too much for me. And in this particular case, it was other people, my support group, my partner at the time, who saw the very desperate condition I was getting in. I mean, one day I realized I was standing in the aisle of the grocery store looking at cereal boxes. I must have been there 10 or 15 minutes and couldn't make a decision on which one to pick up, could barely remember how I got there. And this is all clean, never
Great
took a
example.
drink or anything, but I was like in this unbelievably frightening place that I don't want to ever get that deep again. And in my, I've always been a workaholic, and so I couldn't. One of the connection points here is I couldn't get back to work, and I was able to fill up my life. My mentors got me involved in all kinds of, helping other people activities, service work, which sustained me. And this took a very long time to dig out of. I mean, years, but it eventually led me to what I'm doing now, which is kind of the job description change you just mentioned, using all my skills and experience in a very different way to help people. And I'm flourishing. And all those experiences got baked into this program I'm involved with, which a strategic linchpin, it's a requirement for our team, is really diligent wellness care. And we talk about it all the time. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on so long.
Oh, no, I love it.
This stuff is very real.
That's what we learned. Yeah. And your point is so struck with me that we don't get out of it quickly. I've been able to get it out of it fairly quickly. Most of my clients are too far in it by the time they get to me and realize that there's a problem or that your colleagues are seeing it. I mean, I'm a trained therapist. I'm going to see things a little bit sooner sometimes, not always. But your point is what I'm trying to make. Burnout is nothing to sneeze at. It can take you out. It can take you down. And unfortunately, people use numbing agents, process addictions, porn, shopping, video games. We have addictions as in alcohol, heroin. These are the worlds that I live in. So I realize that we use things like that to numb ourselves. So the preventative and the self-care is so important. One of the things that I don't know whether you guys, can you see the top of that screen? What is compassion? And I've kind of put out compassion, and I have empathy. So interesting. Whoa, I went one too far, my bad. One of the things that I think is really important, I don't know how to move this. Okay, one of the things that I think is real important is I switched it. I wish we had redefined it not as compassion fatigue, but empathetic fatigue. Here's the difference. Compassion is endless. It is about love. It is about seeing other people. It is endless. The capacity for compassion is endless. What is interesting though, empathy is not. It has a shelf life. And we get burnt out. And so I wish we hadn't done that. I worked in the field of domestic violence. Like I said, a lot of my work is with human trafficking, and I've had to learn an awful lot about empathy fatigue, because you deal with people that are in these tough places, but it should really be called not compassion fatigue, but empathy fatigue. It's a preoccupation with absorbing trauma and emotional stresses of others, creating secondary traumatic stressors in the helper. Empathetic fatigue can be defined as the emotional residue of exposure to working with those suffering from the consequences of traumatic events. The prolonged exposure from listening to clients' traumatic stories makes you susceptible to empathy fatigue, and it's not always identifiable. While working at Hubbard House, I was so blessed, everybody, that I had amazing supervisor. And one night, and this was my first job, right? That coming out and working at Hubbard House, it was extremely, wow, this is just a lot of trauma to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And one night, my supervisor came, saw my door open, and she was like, why are you here? It's 8 o'clock. You're supposed to be out of here by 6. And I was like, this case, I've got these things to do. She sat down patiently and said, so what about this case? I knew this case. I was working with the FBI. We were very aware of this person who did have children, exited our doors, that we did know that there were people outside there waiting to kill her. It had been obvious. We knew it. This is one of my first clients. So you can imagine that what I'm experiencing, that if you walk out that door and the FBI are on the case and they're trying to protect her and they're trying to protect us, I'm a little overdone, right? And Kay said to me, make a list of what you can do, because I'll stay to midnight with you. I said, okay. Made my list, call the FBI, check on this, go do this, call the attorney, whatever the list was. And Kay said, let's go through your list. And we went through it. And she said, which of those can we do right now? I went, none. And she was like, right. So we need to teach you how to walk out of here and leave that list on your desk to return in the morning. It's been 15 years since I got this lesson. It is 15 years that there isn't a single night I don't walk out of my office this way. I tidy my office. It looks nice. When I walk in, it's going to be clean. The desk's not a mess. It looks nice. And I get to the door, and there's my light switch. And before I turn the lights out, here's what I say. It was a good day. I did the very best I could for everybody that entered my office. I didn't finish it all, but I will return tomorrow to fight another fight. And the light switch goes out. And I turn and I walk away. Now, when I was at Hubbard House, I had my office to get through, first set of double doors, second set of double doors, first gate out, second gate out. Yep, we're pretty well protected. But every one of those stages for me at Hubbard House had a statement. Next door, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm leaving it all here. I'll see you tomorrow. 15 days or 15 years, I still walk over to my light switch, show gratitude for the day that I had, and vow to come back tomorrow refreshed and renewed. That is a saving grace for me, is that I'm able to walk away, leave it there, and come back tomorrow and be ready for that day. I have taught more new interns how to do that, attorneys how to do that. Anybody can use that. Just have a ritual. I had one man that when he got back down to his car, he would turn around. He was a CEO of a major corporation here. Look at his big building. He had a mantra, he said. Then he got in his car and was able to drive home. Mantras are huge. They will help you. If you have a ritual at every single spot, they can help you with this burnout and depression and empathy fatigue. Uh-oh. The difference, I don't know if you can see the top of my screen. Am I hiding it? So burnout is on the left, empathy is on your right. They're very similar. Look at the one over on the right. I really like that one where it says almost to the bottom, and that it's in the top right square. It says detachment. That to me is one of the big ones. When you're so detached, my example of myself being so detached from my client. Really? You got shot? Oh my God, can you imagine even having that thought? That's just horrible. So I think that's one of the things I think you've got to be really aware of. Cynicism is my other one, those absolutes. Symptoms, physical, physiological, cognitive. I've talked about symptoms of the fatigue over on the other side. Remember, I look at somatic things. That's one of my jobs. We are all going to, in the next 10 to 15 years, I train under Bessel van der Klerk. I don't know if you all know who he is. He's probably the #1 trauma psychotherapist in the world. And that's who I've chosen he's the man who wrote The Body Keeps Score. And if you haven't read that, you need to read it. You probably are all dealing with clients that deal with that. But one of the things that we know is in the next 5 to 10 years, we will definitely be still dealing with PTS and burnout from COVID. And people are coming into my office with somatic issues that no doctor can find a reason for. Why is there a headache? Why is there a stomach ache? Why is my back hurt? Why do my joints hurt? Well, I'm here to tell you that the somatic issues are the stress issues that we're dealing with. And our body will find the weakest link in your body and go to it. Somebody who has a heart condition that never had a heart condition, more than likely that comes from stress. Maybe it's a poor diet and all the other reasons as well. But when people come to me and say, oh, if one more doctor tells me it's in my head, that's why I work with doctors and psychotherapists together, because we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out and work together to make this possible. So I think we're going to be dealing, and I think you all are going to be dealing with this for the next 5 to 10 years in your clients. And I think all of this information is not just about you. I know Natalie and I really talked about it. I want you to look at your clients differently. How are your clients talking to you? Are they using absolutes? What are they saying? So that you can pick up on maybe they're experiencing burnout or depression. Because you can be identifiers, not only in yourself or your colleagues, but for your clients. Be a better employer. Notice it in the people that you work with, in your family members. Be able to pick up on any of these symptoms and just open the conversation. Prevention and treatment. Yes, we can prevent it, and yes, we can treat it. Self-care, #1. And that's my little therapy dog on the far side there. That's Riley. He's in my office every day. And I thought Riley was a fantabulous co-therapist. It wasn't until COVID that I realized he was my own therapist, right? I think all animals are, but man, during COVID and being isolated, that little guy over there just, I was going to say saved my tail, but there, I'll still use it, right? He really did. Great story. Can I just diverge real quick? Yesterday, I'm walking my dog, took a different route than I normally do. And a man was approaching me and he said, excuse me, by chance, is that Riley? I don't know this person, never seen him. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And it is, that's my dog's name. And I said, yes, it is. And he said, I don't know if you realize, but my brother died 5 years ago and you were his therapist. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he said, may I show you a picture? And he took out his phone and he scrolled down and he said, this is my brother in your office with your dog. And it was. And he said, I don't know whether you know this or not, Patty, but he used that as his Christmas card that year he died. And I didn't know that. And he said, we were all so excited that my brother had gotten a dog. And then my brother had to confess it wasn't his dog, it was my dog. And I said to him, I said, oh my God, they had the most incredible bond I've ever witnessed. And he said, Patty, I think my brother was alive at least another year due to your dog. So we talked about that bond. We wished each other well, and we went on. Now, how random is that to be walking down the street and somebody go, is that the dog Riley? Is that crazy? One of my favorite stories. It was a touching morning yesterday. Eating a healthy diet. Oh my gosh, that's our #1 defense. I'm not saying you have to be plant-based. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. You can have a cookie, you can have ice cream. It's all moderation, but it's healthy. So absolutely disdaining the whole intermittent fasting. Many of you are probably doing it. I'm a real disbeliever. It's part of the diet culture. We were all intermittent fasting. If you stop eating at 7 o'clock at night and don't eat until 7 o'clock in the morning, you were intermittent fasting. We've now created a name, but now we have people that are only eating 2 meals a day and there's 20 hours between you eat. It's crazy. Clients that come in and tell me, I don't eat carbs. The only thing your brain functions on is carbohydrates. And we need 130 grams a day. And you're getting 0? Yeah, won't touch them. No rice, quinoa, 0. Well, good luck with that. You're going to be in burnout and you're going to be exhausted pretty darn quick, right? Plenty of exercise. Riley and I walk in the morning, we walk in the afternoon. I'm a big paddle boarder, so find that thing that gets you going. You don't have to love exercise. You can be like Oprah and just go, I hate it, and I'm going to do it anyway, right? Sometimes we just have to do things we don't necessarily like, but more than likely it's nice to take a walk, be out in nature. Engaging in sleeping and healthy sleeping habits. Please make sure that you've got all your computer stuff and everything off an hour before. Don't be scrolling as you're getting into bed. That's the worst thing. Create a cave. I love a cave. I don't know if any of you know Jim Kwik, K-W-I-K. He's written the book Limitless. Fabulous book. If anybody of you are interested in the brain and how to think and study and be better. He's a man that had a brain injury as a child and was told he was the boy with the broken brain and decided, I'm not going to be that boy. Thank God for his parents as well. But the book is called Limitless, and it's Jim Kwik, Audible book. It's phenomenal. But he also talks about great sleep habits, and that's part of the reason I brought that up. So an hour off of anything with Bluetooth. I can't sleep. I don't have any TV or anything in my room anymore. Started that about 12 years ago. And I can't sleep in a hotel with a TV because the computer and or a TV screen still emits blue light even when it's off. So if I can't unplug a TV in a hotel room, I take that big old heavy bedspread and I put it over the TV. Otherwise, I'm awake at 2 in the morning. So it's something your brain's very sensitive to. We don't see it. My TV is off, but it's emitting a blue light. So I'm just very aware of that. Daily renewal exercises. Here's number 1. Please try this. You will love it. Gratitude. Write 10 things down a day, bullet form for the next 30 days. You will change your life. I've seen people get off their medications. I've seen people change their depression meds. I've seen people lower their cholesterol. 10 things for 30 days. And I know it's true. It works. I have people come in and then they stop doing it and they go, oh, man, I'm feeling crappy again. What did you stop? My gratitude. Oh, okay. Let's try that again. You'll start off normally by going, my family, my work, my job, my pretty tree. And then it'll get down. I study gratitude a lot. And one of the guys we flip stories back and forth. And one day he was reading his list to me. And I said, what was that third one he said? And he goes, read the list. Thumbs. I go, oh man, I have to change my gratitude. I go, you have your thumbs? He goes, have you ever stopped and thought, Mohler, what your thumbs do for you? And I'm like, yeah, they change pages. They lift my milk. Like, oh my God, yeah, I need to get into smaller gratitude. So if I have Riley on there, I don't just put Riley anymore. I think specifically what Riley did that day. Was it that he licked a baby? That was hilarious yesterday. I had a week-old baby. He wouldn't let the thing go. It was adorable. So that went on my gratitude. It wasn't Riley. It was that he was so attentive to a week-old baby. It's just bullet points 1 month to do it. Pretty much in a habit. So just keep it going. If you look, I have probably 15 little stacks of little tiny notebooks. I keep them that little. I just do it at bedtime. The different practice is when you wake up and think, what am I going to put on my gratitude list tonight? Man, you're searching for stuff all day long. It's really fun and really easy. If you're depressed, you get to the end of the day and go, yeah, gratitude. Yeah, I got nothing. I got nothing. There's nothing to be grateful for. But if you were thinking about it all day long, even when you're depressed, oh, I saw that sunflower. Okay, sunflower. What about the sunflower if that's all you got? It had yellow leaves and they were bright and it there were 2 of them, and it was brown. Like, you can find a 10 of things on a dandelion, right? So I'm a big person into gratitude. Sometimes I think you need to change that position or job altogether. Not always, but I always think that you've got to see if it's burnout, change something. Is it the job? Change your performance, take a break. If you feel better, it was that, right? Depression won't magically change. If I switch jobs, you're still going to be depressed more than likely. And then there's something else to be looking at. Therapy. If, like Roger said, you find yourself in the middle of this big vortex called burnout and you can't get out of it and somebody's telling you you're in it, go see a therapist. Let them help distinguish, is it burnout? Is it empathy fatigue, or is it depression? They overlap, but you need a therapist to be able to do that. And we don't want, like what Roger said, to you to be in it 2 or 3 years. I've seen people have to give up their entire professions because they waited too long and to get too far into the numbing agents of alcohol, cocaine, process addictions. Attorneys, #1 issue is your addictions. You guys numb this stuff so much. I work with attorneys a lot in Jacksonville. So keep that in mind. Trying to keep us right on the hour. So here's how you get in touch with Patty. There's my telephone number. Very proud of it. Wrote a book called Renew, Restore, How to Communicate, Connect, and Celebrate Your Best Self. Went #1 on Amazon. I'm still going to be extremely proud of that. Sometimes we don't say enough good things when we do them. So there's that pitch. I am on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. Last year, I did a TED Talk, and I'm very excited about that. It was fun. It's called Transforming Relationships, One Word at a Time. So that's something you can go check out. Another 15 minutes. That was an experience. But yeah, so follow me, reach out to me. I'd love to open the floor up to any comments or any comments or questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Patty. This is fascinating. This is fascinating. I love the distinction that you're making between burnout and depression. I think so many of us have probably been burned out at one time or another. It's great information to see. We've got about 3 minutes. Does anybody have a quick question for Patty? No. Okay, well, let me just reiterate then that the Mission House is Patty's preferred provider here for any donations anyone might like to make. The website is www.missionhousej, as in Jacksonville, JAX, after the words Mission House, .org. And so it would be wonderful if you can support that, or your local food bank, or any food bank anywhere in the world. Thank you so much. Patty, this has been fascinating and I'm sure helpful. And these videos get watched over time. I'm sure that it will touch so many people. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next Thursday. Same time. Register for your different Zoom link, and thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for your service.